Welcome to Godfall 101, you students of the sword, warriors of the Warhammer. Dick Haney joined Arekkz once again to reveal some of Godfall's important combat systems, and I want to cover that information quickly and some more info dropped by the Godfall community manager over on Reddit. So first up, the 4 important systems. First we have Weakpoints. Weakpoints are a core aspect of Godfall, one of the first systems that were developed by the team in fact. After an enemy attacks, they will have a short recovery period where a weak point is exposed. Players will have a reticle that they can aim and target the weak points with. Counterplay didn't want this just to be a hack and slash. And by introducing this system, this will introduce a precision element that players will have to engage with in order to reach the top tiers of combat prowess. And by exploiting the weak points, you will deal bonus damage, potentially CC or crowd control the enemy via knockdown or something else. There will be a small window to exploit weak points, so you're going to have to be quick and on your game. Once we look closer into the loot, weak points can act as triggers. Dick gave us some examples of what augments can do. Certain amulets might heal you for exploiting a trigger, or make projectiles fire from that weak point, attacking other enemies or dealing explosive AoE damage. There'll be a lot of options that will allow players to experiment with, so that'll be something interesting that we hopefully get to learn about more soon, is all the different triggers that all of our different weapons, augments, and amulets will have. We also learned that every enemy will have weak points, and bosses will be a little bit more unique. So the second system we learned about is Breach. Breach is the primary crowd control method in Godfall. Breach works by attacking an enemy and depleting their health bar. While depleting their health bar, their breach bar will be filling up. Once this bar is full, the enemy will go into a stun state and will be vulnerable to a takedown and deal a massive amount of damage, and in most cases, outright execute the enemy. Breach will also be tied to loot, and a variety of buffs can be applied and built around Breach. Pretty much every enemy in the game can be breached. The third system we learned about is Soul Shatter. Soul Shatter is like a finisher. Soul Shatter works in conjunction with the health bar of enemies. So as the enemy health bar decreases, the Soul Shatter bar will increase, replacing that lost health. And once that enemy bar is completely white, you can trigger a Soul Shatter by doing a power attack. Soul Shatters will cause the enemy to implode from the inside, and it has some really cool particle effects tied with that. Now, like weak points in Breach, Soul Shatter will also be tied into loot in some ways. The fourth and final thing that we learned about, and the thing that I'm more particularly excited about, is Polarity Attacks. Players have 2 weapons that they can bring into missions. Now, this was a large debate within the team. They wanted to avoid analysis paralysis by being able to bring in too many weapons and trying to do all the math to figure out what your best build was. So after a long time, they decided 2 would be optimum. So while attacking with one weapon, you'll be filling the polarity gauge for your second weapon. When you swap weapons after that gauge is full, it will cause a large AoE attack and boost the damage of the weapon you just swapped to for a short period of time. And again, like everything else, loot is also going to tie into polarity attacks, so we can expect to be able to build around polarity attacks. Arekkz asked about being able to stack weapons. Dick said that you will not be able to do that, so unfortunately, if you wanted to roll with 2 eclipses, you are unable to do that. Alright, so those are the major 4 combat systems that we learned about. Now I want to kind of talk about the augments and augment constellations, because there's a couple extra tidbits of information that Dick dropped for us. So our character will have 3 basic attributes. We will have Might, which is attached to DPS, or damage per second. It's your attack value. We have Vitality, which is attached to your defense ability. And we have Spirit, which is attached to cooldown reduction, or CDR, and unique damage sources. They tied these colors to Might would be red, Vitality would be green, Spirit would be blue. I could be wrong on those, so those could change, I'm not sure. But all augments are associated with one of these 3 stats. So each Valorplate will have a unique augment constellation, and we've talked about augment constellations before and did some speculation on them. But Dick says each will have 10 or so nodes to plug augments into, and each node will have certain colors associated with them. So you have to put a green augment into a green node. You have to put a red augment into a red node. Maybe potentially some of this we'll be able to break those rules, but I'm not sure. They didn't say anything one way or another. That's just speculation on my part. But I'm guessing you got to put the green augment into the green node, right? So Valorplates will all have a primary and secondary trait tied to those attributes. So we don't know much about this yet, but I'm curious if there are any Valorplates, or if you're able to craft a different Valorplate that brings all 3 of those attributes together. I'm not sure. We'll just have to wait and see if that's something that they're going to talk about. or if that's something we'll just have to discover in the future. And also, according to Keith Lee from a previous interview, he had mentioned that proximity is going to somehow play a factor in the way we construct these augment constellations. So those are the 4 major combat systems that we learned about from the interview with Arekkz. We have Weakpoints, Breach, Soul Shatter, and Polarity Attacks. For me personally, Polarity Attacks sound really cool, and maybe it's because I played too much Ikaruga back in the day, or because Control made switching from your service pistol to your power so fun and unique, that the idea of having to control your weapon rotation for maximum effectiveness takes Godfall from a boring button masher to something more nuanced. So Dick also mentioned after each new combat system that loot will tie directly into each of them, having augments, amulets, and weapons that will directly tie into the system, potentially making you a soul-shattering savant or a breaching king. Couple this with the innate abilities of each Valorplate and their Archon Furies, and then add co-op on top of that, and that just gets your mind, moving 100 miles an hour, figuring out what you can do, what the potential is. So there were some other small details that we can cover rather quickly. We have some small gear info. Each piece of gear will have a primary and secondary trait. Primary trait will give you all those triggers. Secondary will give you all those stat bonuses, plus 10%, minus 3% to cooldown, whatever that's going to be. And I'm sure there will be exceptions to this rule, but I hope that there's going to be a lot of differing triggers, something that we can play around, build around, and have a lot of fun with. Really maximizing your effectiveness with whichever Valorplate you really are drawn to. We did get to see a banner being placed by Mesa, and we see a large AoE circle outlining the area of effect. It'll be interesting to see if these are craftable. How do we get banners? What are the effects that they'll have on the battlefield? I'm guessing, normal, healing AoE, attack AoE, damage AoE, we've got a cooldown reduction AoE, kind of those standard things that we see in games like this, but I am interested to see how they change. Are there certain rarities attached to banners? What do we have to do to equip them? How are we gonna be able to combo them while we're playing co-op with other people and multiple banners being put on the ground? So again, lots of excitement around what we can do with that system. We also see the Greatsword being thrown and blocking enemy attacks. So Redditor JH West has a keen observation and receives an answer from the community team over on Reddit. JH West asked, "I was watching the new footage today of Mesa wielding a two-handed sword. Do you lose the shield with this weapon? Every time it shows Mesa blocking, it's with the sword itself. Just curious, thanks." And then Thanatos Noah took to Reddit and responded saying the shield is collapsible when not in use, to not obstruct with weapons animations. But it is available with every weapon, including the two-handed greatsword. That being said, we haven't done a dive into the greatsword mechanics yet, so you've definitely caught on to something yet to be revealed. Smiley face. Another Reddit user asked about the campaign and campaign length over on Reddit, and Thanatos Noah, community manager, once again jumped in to give an answer. When asked, do we know if there is a campaign, Thanatos Noah responded, yes, there will be a campaign. This is not a games as a service, it's a more traditional RPG that's done out of the box, so to speak, with no microtransactions. Think more God of War 2018 if you're having trouble picturing it. It's not quite the same length as the epic saga Kratos takes his son. The story is more involved in Monster Hunter World, which really takes a backseat if you only preoccupy yourself with the hunting. Alright, so there's the info I thought was noteworthy. I'm sure I missed something important, so if I did, drop it in the comments and I'll make sure to get to it. Also, because I love to give things away, you can head over to the Twitter link in the description below and enter to win a copy of Godfall for either the PC or for PlayStation 5. Once again, thank you for watching the videos. If you like it, please consider dropping a like and subbing to the channel and sharing it with your friends. And until next time, please be kind to each other.